What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a young and bright assistant coach with a great basketball mind, excellent talent evaluator, and a future head coach in this business in my eyes, and a native of Destrehan, Louisiana, Trey Montgomery. Now, it's interesting with Trey is I've gotten to know him, even though I think he was at Penn when I was at Hofstra and we scrimmaged them, and I know he works alongside Joe Mahalik, Jr. at Penn. I know. And I worked for Joe's dad. It's interesting. You probably didn't talk as much then when you scrimmaged them, but with this pandemic going on and these Zooms, you get to know guys on these Zooms, and just listening to him on these Zooms, he's actually been awesome. Just to listen and talk about the things that he's done. So it was definitely someone I wanted to get on the show, and so people get to know him. He played at Stanford for 4 years. I'm sorry about that. Played at Stanford University for 4 years, outstanding career. I think when he left there, he was in top 20 in scoring. Won a couple of awards while he was there. And he switched conferences while he was there as well as a player. So 2 years in the OVC, 2 years in the Southern, I believe. So from there, he decides to go and play professionally. He goes over to Germany for a couple of years. Plays in Germany, then he comes back home after a couple of injuries he battled with, decided to get into coaching, and he coaches at his alma mater, at Destrehan High School, and for 4 years as an assistant coach, and then finally landing at Eastern University, MPA. I got to find out what that was about, how he ended up getting to that. And he was there for 2 seasons in Pennsylvania for 2 years, and then he's presently been at Penn for the last 2 years, going on year 3, and he's done an outstanding job at Penn, and I know how tough it is being in the Ivy League, but Penn has great tradition, and I just wanted to say welcome to the show, Trey.
And I appreciate being here, LB, man. Thank you so much.
Trey, man, we're going to get right to it, man. We're going to get unmasked. And your journey is a little different. You played, had an outstanding career, and played professionally a little bit, and then you at the same time, you go to high school coaching, which is kind of similar to me. Go out into high school coaching for 4 years, and then you go Division III, I believe. Yeah, Division III, and then before going Division I. But talk about this. Like, there's no handbook, man, in college to being a college coach. There's none whatsoever. I don't care what level you're at. Tell me about that first day, first week, first month, after things are done with human resources and orientation, especially like when no one gives you direction. And you can talk about your experience, whether it was at Eastern or whether it was your experience at Penn, it doesn't matter, but talk about that, man, when you first get into college basketball.
Oh man, that was it was a alarming experience, but it was fun because there was so much anxiety. On the positive end, I was just ready and encouraged to kind of get to work. And so being at high school, you kind of dream of being at the college level. And so, being able to jump into the college ranks rather quickly, it was great for me. But I think that first 2 or 3 weeks, it was all about just getting to know those guys, getting to know the university. Eastern was a great place when I first started there. It still is, but it was a great place, small Christian background. So I was familiar with that type of school, being at Stanford, which is a small Baptist school. And, so I had an idea of what the university was, where they were trying to go, what they stood for, things of that nature. And but just really getting to relate to the guys and trying to be as transparent, as available to talk to them on that type of a landscape, and just try to say, hey, listen, man, I'm here for you more than just basketball. Joe Mahalik, who you mentioned earlier, he always says, if we're coaching X's and O's, if that's the only thing that we're coaching, then we're not doing our jobs as coaches. We need to be doing more than that. And so prior to knowing him, I think I was trying to do that as best as I could. And So getting to know the coaching staff, we were all new for the most part, except for two individuals. We had a coaching staff of 5, 4 assistants and 1 head coach. And so we were all just building. We were in the trenches. We were young. We were naive for the most part, and just trying to go out there and put out the best quality product. And so I think getting to know the guys and basically getting to know your product, which is the players and their performance, I think that was the most important piece going into it.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Recruiting. We all know that's the lifeline of athletics. You got to get good players, got to get good people. In your case, you got to get great students. And the hardest thing, man, being in the Ivy League is trying to figure out who wants to be the best basketball player that happens to have grades. I mean, that's a hard job within itself, because sometimes you got guys who they like basketball, but they want to get to the Ivy League because it's the Ivy League, and they use that to get into the Ivy League. So you got to kind of differentiate between who wants to be really good as a player and just happens to have grades. But talk about your best and worst recruiting stories, whether it was at Eastern or whether it was at Penn. Like, talk about those, man, because we know that if you want to be successful, you gotta have players.
I'll tell you the funniest story to start off with was my very first recruit, which happened to be one of my high school players. So going to Eastern, when I first, I actually got the job over the phone. Like, I'm in Louisiana. I'm actually recovering from a torn ACL, which I was playing in the men's league, which is foolish on my part, and recovering from that. And so one of my homeboys actually called me up and was like, "Hey, listen, man, I know a coach. He wants to get assistance, like, and kind of hook me up through there." And so moments after I got the job on the phone, he was like, "Hey, listen," he's like, "since you're going to be coming up here, you might as well start recruiting for me." He goes, I need a guard." And I was like, "All right, well, what type of guard do you need?" He goes, "I need a quick one, just athletic." I was like, "Oh, that's easy. I got you one." I was like, "Give me 10 minutes. And he was like, 10 minutes? Who is this guy? And so literally called one of my players who happened to be at Grambling at the time, and he was told that he can get a walk-on position, which didn't happen. And he was kind of just going to school there. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, listen, man, there's a chance for you to go to Philadelphia and play some Division III basketball." And he kind of scoffed at it because I always say Louisiana, unfortunately, they don't have a true landscape of college basketball because there's not very many D2s and D3s. So they get a wrong perception of what the D3 lifestyle and D3 or D2 and D3 basketball is really about. So the kid goes, "D3?" And I said, "Hey, man, listen, you got 2 options. Like, you could pay to go to school at Grambling, or you could pay to go to school and play basketball at Eastern." And he goes, "When you put it like that, I'll go." So I was like, "All right, cool. Well, I'll get you the forms, I'll get you everything, and we'll be set." And so it's like, just wait for my phone call later tonight. So I called the coach back. I said, "Hey, man, listen, I got a guard. He's quick, he's athletic, he's good. I'll send you the clips." I was like, but you got him." So he goes, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." So I sent him the clips. He was like, "Man, I love him. He's great. He'd be perfect." A couple months later, he was up there before I even moved up there. So, that was kind of a funny one. I think there's no. I'll say this. In the Ivy League, you're 100% correct. There's a dichotomy when it comes to recruiting. When it comes to trying to get the best athlete, best basketball player, student athlete, as well as a kid who mixes in with obviously the financial component as well as the academic component that's at Penn. And so you have to get the jack of all trades, I guess you could say. And you got to kind of look up as well that hopefully, they want to go to Penn and not get deterred by some of the other great schools that are within our league. And, because we're only, out of the grand scheme of things, we're all recruiting the same kids essentially. And so, I won't say there's any horror stories, but I will say that there are some ones where you think you have them, and then next thing you know, another Ivy sweeps in there and they get them, and it can be hard and taxing at times because you put so much emphasis and so much time and effort into it. But that's the game, and like you said, I mean, you got to get the horses to run the race. So
true, man. So true. Now you play. You're married with a family, wife and 2 boys, and so we all know that this is a grueling business. This is a, we say, yeah, 12, 15-hour days, but it's probably more than that when you look at it, just because your phone always got to be on. You always have to be, you never know what's going to happen. You're hoping that you always have great kids, but anything can happen. You're in the office, if not six, definitely, if not seven, definitely 6 days a week. Just because you got so much stuff going on, official visits, unofficial visits. And then, like, I think guys work 355, 360 days out the year. Like, there's not a lot of time off. You can't really plan, things with your friends or your family. So everything's kind of built around you. Like, but what did you have to give up or sacrifice achieving your current level of success?
A lot of time. Time is money. Time is valuable. I think that I'm so blessed and fortunate enough to have a wife who gets it. She was actually pushing for me to do this more so than I was in the beginning. And my passion is just kind of taking me to the next level. But time is the biggest sacrifice. I mean, and you're still sacrificing. That sacrifice doesn't change. Family is obviously the linchpin to life, and you need to make sure that you're spending time with your wife, you're spending time with your kids, you're spending time with mom and dad if you're around them, or close buddies, and making sure you're staying in contact with them without having to negate and diminish the things that you're doing as far as that level on your job. And so you need to make sure that you're doing your due diligence when it comes to recruiting and talking to these players, but you need to make sure you have boundaries as well. And I think the biggest thing is making sure that you manage your time properly. You don't overexert yourself. I mean, there's a lot of burnout in this industry. There's a lot of, so many different things involved. And I just think it's very important for, you to understand what's important and prioritize the right way. But the most important thing sacrificing is time. There's so many hours of the day where you're watching film on other people. There's so many hours of the day where you're trying to learn even the things that you guys are figure out ways to get better. Looking at training sessions from certain guys, trying to pick up different pieces so you can work on them with your guys. Just all different things, while constantly having to self-reflect and evaluate yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, am I doing the best that I can, and what ways that I can get better? And so it is grueling. It really is. And so, and it's a lot of a mind game, but I feel as though if your intentions are always correct, if your heart's always in the right place, if you're trying to do the right thing as best as you possibly can, then that usually takes over more than anything. But definitely time most assuredly is one of the most important things you sacrifice.
Yes, sir. Great answer right there. You talked about like scouting. Like, that's another big part of coaching, especially these scout reports. Sometimes you go and do a great job. You got the calls, you got the actions down. Terrific job. The kids follow the game plan. Hey, it's great when you win. Sometimes you might you have all the things right. A guy who hasn't played in a while, or a guy who's struggling. He's gone 2 for his last 30. He decides to make 4 threes in the game. Yep. Coach turning to you saying, or even the players like, Coach, I thought you said he couldn't shoot. No, I never said he couldn't shoot. I said he has been struggling. That's a big difference. Or like the, scout reports where, guys just, they don't pay attention for what, we always say this, and yours is even different more than anything. And I think I got it from a fellow guy that was in the Ivy League at the time. We watch 7, 8 games as coaches. They're watching like just the highlights or clips that you put up. So they don't know as much as you do. They're trying to retain all this short stuff, but you've gotten 7, 8 games of film that's locked in, and you know everything. They don't, but you try to give them as much information as possible, and it don't work out. But talk about like your best and worst scout reports you think you may have had over the years.
Oh, no doubt. So, as far as scouting at the Division III level, I think we all shared that responsibility as far as a coaching staff. We all watch film together. We all watched everything together. Our head coach might have watched a little bit more than us, but we all were pretty much in it together. So we couldn't really get our own scouting reports. We were just kind of floating about. But obviously, once we get to the Division I level, I will say this: there was a bit of competitiveness when it comes to me to get all those scouts. So I was literally marking my calendar for every scout that I had, and I would, that first year, I think I had I had Miami, which we won. I had New Mexico, which we won. I had Brown, Dartmouth. We beat them. There were a couple of schools that I had. That we won against, and the one scout that we had that I lost was Monmouth. And so at the end of the year, I will say this: the competitiveness in me, I went through and I was like, hey man, look, I've 13 games, 12 games, or however many, 10 games, or however many games I had scouting. And I was like, I think I went like 9-1. I only lost one game. And so I'm proud of myself, and I'm going to coach almost like my badge of honor, like, the little kid with the painting, and they're showing their parents, and they want to put it on the microwave or the refrigerator. And coach is like, I don't give a damn about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so just like, dude, we win as a team, we lose as a team. That's not important. And so I had to check myself in that moment, but and I had to learn that it was definitely about the team. But to answer your question, I think the hardest scout that I had was that Monmouth game. Part of the reason was because, you look at film, like you said, you look at 7, 8, 9, 10 games, and it's kind of like evaluation, right? You could see the skill set. You could see, okay, this kid is great going to his left, maybe poor going to his right, vice versa. He could shoot, stand stills pretty well, but he's not great coming off of screens, or, he has to have his feet set maybe, or he's a good finisher around the rim, but he's not a great free throw shooter. You evaluate all of these different things, but what you don't equate is the amount of heart a kid may have, the amount of determination a kid may have. You also don't equate sometimes what's going on in their season. At that particular point in time, Monmouth, unfortunately, they hadn't won a game. I don't think they had won against a Division I opponent, at least up until that point. And so we were kind of, riding our coattails, because prior to the break, we had beaten Villanova, we had beaten quite a few good teams, and so we were playing Monmouth, and they came out there and they whipped our butt. And and not to say that they weren't a great team, because they were a phenomenal team, but they were hungry. And sometimes you can't, as much as you could kind of put that on your guys and say, hey, listen, like, don't look at their losses or their wins. Like, don't look at the scoreboard. Like, take it for what it is. It's a great team. It's a good opponent. And so, and part of that also, you don't take into effect of, who may be available. Sometimes guys may be hurt and are coming back, and you don't know what they're going to provide. Sometimes you may have guys you're expecting to have, and they may have a tweak or something like that may cause them to miss that game. And fortunately enough, or unfortunately enough, both of those things happened. They had a guy who returned from injury who came back, and he had a pretty good game. We also had a couple of guys that were out. Max Rothschild, who was our senior vocal leader, he was out with a back injury, who was a very good post player for us and physical defender around the rim. Mike Wong, who was our stellar freshman, he was battling a knee injury at the time, and so he was sitting out a couple of games. And so those things take into effect, and you got to be able to adjust. And so when those things happen, sometimes you got to be ready to make adjustments and talk to coach and make those things happen. Sometimes it's just not your night. You just got to be willing to take it on the chin. But all in all, you just got to be able to accept responsibility and accountability for those things. And, you just go back to the drawing board and, hope that you can regroup as a team and just have that mindset that you're going to get them next time. And so at the end of the day, it's not the end all be all, as long as you're teaching the right thing and you're learning the right things from those lessons. But I think that game specifically was probably one of my hardest scouts, because of the fact that there was so much unknown. And I will say also, the Alabama game this past season, the first game of the season, was very hard, because you're dealing with coaching change. Nate Oates went from Alabama, different groups. You're dealing with a lot of freshmen that are coming in. I think they had Shackelford and a couple other guys that were really, really good. And so, it was hard to root against them, because you just don't know what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, you just got to be able to trust in what you're doing, and trust in, your philosophy and your guys and go out there and win the game.
So true, man. That's all facts right there. What is your biggest challenge you've experienced since you become a college coach?
Myself. Critiquing myself, being my own worst enemy. Sometimes, as competitive beings, most of the individuals who have been at the college basketball coaching landscape or that level, in any level, usually they have played basketball to a certain degree, and there's a level of competition to want to win, to want to be great, to want to be successful, and to push yourself. And as a player, that may seem easy because, it's very independent upon yourself, because all you get in the gym, you work out hard, you stay in shape, you get your mind focused, you watch film, you communicate with your teammates, you do all of these things that you're coached to do. And then when you get to the coaching world, it's like, how do I get in the gym to be a coach? How do I, lift as a coach? How do I, do those things? And so, and there's constant moments where you're trying to figure out, hey, listen, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to work? And sometimes you think a little bit down the line, like, is this going to help me continue to get better and better and progress to bigger and better things? Like, and so those things definitely creep into your mind sometimes. But I think drawing on, your mindset of constantly wanting to get better and just staying the course, drawing on the help and the strengths of your colleagues, your coaches, your coaching staff, the people that are around you, building the rapport with those players, and gaining confidence through all of the things that you do. Those are all important as well to the mental psyche. And so, and just loving the game, keeping it simple. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing that I've had to do in the past year, is that get back to the basics. It's the players who are the most important piece. So make sure you're putting it into the players. Make sure you're available to them with whatever they need. Second of all, do your best to educate yourself on everything that's going on around you, whether that be recruiting, whether that be, knowing if a player is sick and if he needs to call his mom, and do you need to call his mom for him, or blah, blah, blah. Making sure that you understand what the university is about, this and the third. And then last but not least, making sure that you have proper balance in everything. And so I think that's those are probably the three most important things when it comes to keeping it simple, is just making sure the players are okay, making sure you understand where you are, what you are, who you are, and then making sure that there's balance as far as, off the court, and nothing's really deviating you from your goals and the things that you need.
Awesome nuggets right there, man. Do you ever find that there are things about you that people misunderstand? What are they?
Yeah, I'm super competitive. Look, I'm an only child, man. And I'll say this, man, I could be selfish to a fault sometimes. And, I grew up not having to worry about sharing and all this other stuff. It's always been about me. And so I think sometimes I'm a very nice person. I try to be very upbeat. I try to be very energetic. I always credit myself in never coming in upset. I never walk in the office with a frown on my face, or upset or pissed off or anything like that. But there are moments in time where I can get overly competitive. And I think people don't understand that about me. I know my wife does, but I think that people think that I'm a sometimes very gentle creature, and that's not entirely true. I try to be as nice as I possibly can, but there is a level of competitiveness, a big edge that I do have that I don't show a lot in public for certain, but it comes out sometimes in practice and games or things of that nature, where I definitely have to learn how to tone it back some. But definitely, I definitely have a big competitor.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. We all know that, man. We got in this business, man, coaching to educate or teach these young men, not just the game of basketball, but about life. Someone grabbed you along the way, whether it was that the teacher from, little league, rec league, junior high, middle school. I mean, high school don't matter, but like, what do you try to teach your players besides basketball?
I think the two things that I try to teach kids are, number one, that, it's bigger than basketball. It's always bigger than basketball. It's always been bigger than basketball. Basketball is going to start and stop with or without you, it's a means to an end. And we have to utilize this sport to get to what we're really doing. Now, some people's calling is to be LeBron James, and to be that high level basketball player to where you maneuver and, move around the way you want to. And for others, it's an opportunity for us to get to learn some things about ourselves so that we could help affect others and affect the world. And so I always encourage our guys to understand that it's always bigger than basketball. The other thing that I'll say is that, the biggest investment that you can make in life is in people. I wouldn't have gotten here, without the strength of great people. It takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a lot of good men to raise a good man, regardless of your circumstances. You need good coaches. You need, whether it be fathers, uncles, brothers, friends, whatever the case may be. All of those are important. I wouldn't have gotten here without the strength of Coach Derek Jones, my brother-in-law, Byron Keller. Those are two of the guys that literally got me started. I'll put it like this. When I was at Destrain High School, I didn't know what recruiting meant. I had no idea. My dad was a football player. He played Division I at Prairie View A&M. And he always told me, he was like, listen, man, if you're good enough, they're going to find you. So don't even worry about none of that stuff. Just keep playing. So I was like, okay, I love my dad. I listened to everything he said. And so I just kept playing. And then one day I went to a summer league game, and Coach Jones was coaching at John Ehret High School at the time. And I think I had like 25 against him. And he came up to me and he goes, hey, man, you're pretty good. Who's recruiting you? I said, recruiting? What does that mean? I was a junior in high school, and I was like, oh, what does that mean? He goes, oh, man, we got to change this. So next thing you know, I'm in a bunch of camps, and I started to get offers, and, I was just under the radar prospect. And that's how I ended up at Sanford. He ended up getting an assistant coaching job at Sanford. And back then, a lot of recruiting was about loyalty and about, who was giving you a lot of love and who you could, mesh with the coaching staff with and just kind of see yourself building. And he went to Sanford, and the rest was history. I found out he went there, I was like, it's no brainer. And so it was actually the best decision I ever made. It's important for you to have good people around you that have your best interest at heart, for you to understand that those guys are there for a reason. My brother-in-law, Byron Keller, has been with me every step of the way. He's been at a bunch of games. He was a guy that trained me in the off season. He was a guy that kept me healthy, kept me in shape at all times. And so, and he didn't beat me up when I married his sister. And so, it's a great deal for guys to understand how to network and how to build those resources, but most importantly, how to have good people in your life and to utilize those people to get to where you need to be. But I think those are the two biggest things is understanding that it is bigger than basketball, and then to understand that to have good people around you that will help elevate you and the success that you could have.
Awesome. And I'm hoping you said that was the best decision you made. I mean, I understand, because if your wife heard that, obviously she was either at Sanford or around there somewhere, but I don't know if she's going to like that too much.
Basketball decision.
Okay, there you go.
Basketball
I just want to make sure, hey, you know what I'm saying? Happy wife, happy life. I just want to make sure.
No doubt, man. No doubt.
What are your best and worst memories, man, in coaching?
I'll say this, man. My worst memory was definitely this past year, and I don't want to say it too much, but and I take that back. That's not even close to what really is involved. So my worst memory ever dealing with basketball was my best friend at the time when we were in college. He passed away. And he actually passed away from, he had an anomaly, had an enlarged heart, and basically he had a heart issue while he was sleeping. He fell asleep and passed away in his sleep. And so I unfortunately, I woke up, we were roommates, and I woke up to him passed away. And so that was definitely the worst experience basketball wise, whether it be anything. And I don't want to just exclude, coaching, but as far as basketball, human life is, the most important thing. And that's why I think it's important for us to understand, especially at this time, that safety is very, very paramount when it comes to these student athletes. But, that circumstance right there was, beyond anything that I could have ever experienced when it comes to this basketball situation, because life is precious, life is short. You don't know, for a kid to be 22, 23 years old and pass away, for unrelated reasons, it's traumatizing, and so it could have an effect on you, especially me. I was 21, 22 at the time. And so you don't think those things could happen. You don't walk in expecting those things to happen. As a 20, 21-year-old, you're thinking you're invincible. You're in the best shape of your life. You're probably feeling yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're probably, if you're, I don't want to say, but you're one of the guys on campus to where, you're recognized because you're an athlete, because people are going to the game and they're seeing your face, and you might have a poster on campus, whatever the case may be. You think you're invincible. You're on your own. But that can quickly come to a halt at any moment in time. And so this is it's a precious thing, and that was probably the biggest hardship, dealing with that. And it didn't just affect me; it affected our entire team. It affected our entire university. It affected their family. I'm close to his family as anybody now. You know what I'm saying? I talk to his mom all the time, his sister all the time, like his brother is helping me recruit. You know what I'm saying? His brother is involved in basketball. And so his cousins, I'm like best friends with his cousins. And so at the end of the day, it does shape you when those type of events happen. But that was definitely by far, coaching, not coaching, the hardest basketball related event that I've ever had to go through was my close friend passing away.
Yeah, that's a very tough one. I'm happy. Obviously, you still dealing with it. I mean, not from a standpoint, but you can talk about it now, because that's just a tough one. Like you said, you roommates, and you wake up and you see it, and it's like it is traumatizing. And I mean, yeah, it was years ago, but like that is going to affect you for the rest of your life, no matter what goes on. Like it's just something you don't experience. I mean, you don't think you will experience, and it happens. And so I feel you, man. I definitely feel you. Wow, that's tough.
No doubt, man. It's I'll say this, man. Our head coach, Jimmy Tillett, he gave us these keychains at the beginning of our freshman year, and I still have that keychain. It's actually at my parents' house in the drawer, but it was a leather keychain, and it had the Sanford emblem on it. But at the bottom, it was our slogan, which was "Toughness Wins." And so, like, that's like basically a saying that I keep kind of close to the vest, is that toughness does win, but at the same time, as men, it's important for us to understand that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to, that shows a different level of toughness as well. Being tough in your own skin, being able to show emotion, being able to, feel different things. It's okay for a man to cry. It's okay for a man to, to go through those things and, be impacted. It's important. It's part of life. And so, but at the end of the day, I do think by going through those circumstances, it's made, especially our community, a little bit tougher to a certain aspect, to where we feel like there are certain things that we can endure. Not all things, but certain things that we can endure. But we can endure all of those things. I think the most important message, we can endure all of those things if we're together, and there's some solidarity involved in that as well.
Great stuff, man. Once again, I appreciate you sharing that information. And I'm gonna talk about a player now. I mean, you just hit me with this one, but I'm gonna go to a player. Like, what's the strangest thing, man, a player has done outside of the basketball court? Like, you've seen and been like, wow, I can't believe he did that, or it's just like something that might have been shocking. Like, I would have never done that in a million years. Anything like that?
I'll say, I've had quite a few stories. I won't tell any names, but especially playing. There's one thing about playing basketball. You go through things with your teammates that coaches will never know. And you go through certain events and things like that you don't necessarily share. But I've had quite a few events that have happened around me with teammates, going to parties and getting in fights with Marines, and going to having events that have happened where the guy gets arrested, and things of that nature happen. I mean, there's just so many things that have happened. I don't, I'm not I don't want to say anything in detail, or saying protect the innocent, but to be honest, like I've never really had anything crazy, like a guy building a scarecrow in his backyard or something weird like that. I've never, or guy kissing lucky socks before games or something. I never had anything wild. Fortunately enough for me, I've always said, other people's problems is other people's problems, and I try to stay out of that. But nothing of the sort to be like really weird, because I try to keep boundaries and monitor everybody's privacy as much as I possibly can. But nothing too weird that I'm willing to discuss. Okay.
I respect it. I respect it wholeheartedly. Trust me, I respect it. Like, you've worked for, you've been academic institution, and I'm gonna ask this at Penn, and even at Eastern, and you're young, in the business, which is good. And you've listened to probably a ton of Zoom calls now. Just listen to some of these guys. Any of the college coaches, man, you would just like to sit down, pick their brain, see what they think, how they work. Any guys that come to your mind that you would just like to spend some time with, one-on-one, lunch, dinner, or whatever, just, see how they tick. That's trying to help you along the way in your career, whether it's an assistant, head coach, or whoever, it doesn't matter. Like, and I would say more of a head coach than anybody. Anybody that you would want to sit down and talk with?
All of them, be honest, but I'm, you can't discriminate when it comes to that. But I do think that it's important. I would love to, number one, sit at a table with any coach from, especially at the Division I level, from every conference. That would be a joy of mine, just to see, because I love to see the difference of thought amongst that. But particularly, and this is, these are probably two that I would love to just kind of sit down and see the way they think in their brain, is Lavelle Moulton from North Carolina Central. He's had a tremendous amount of success at the HBCU level, and at an HBCU, not an HBCU level, but at an HBCU, and then I think he's a promising, thriving coach. And so to see a coach and to see what he's thinking, how his mind is, how he's built certain things and how his mind works as he's starting to traject upward, that right there is, I'm sure he'd have a plethora of knowledge, when it comes to those things. With him will be great. But most importantly, and I don't want to put higher or lower, but Leonard Hamilton. For some reason, I've had a affinity for Florida State. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. But when I was coming out of high school, if there was one school that I could pick and go to, it was Florida State. I don't know why. I couldn't give you a real reason, but for some reason I was like, I want to go to Florida State. And so I wrote letters to Leonard Hamilton. I even talked to Coach CY, and I told him, I was like, I want to let you know that I sent letters and tape to Coach Leonard Hamilton. And he sent me back a letter and told me, he's like, he appreciated it, but you know, and I was trying to get recruited, obviously, but he was like, they had guards at the time. And so I was kind of hurt because I didn't know what recruiting meant. You know, I'm an only child, so, you know, I'm not too used to being rejected. And at the same token, you know, I had this great coach that I idolized that was like, nah, we don't need you. So we actually ended up playing Florida State when I was at Sanford, and I gave him everything that I had. I was I was playing as hard as I possibly could. I think after I usually play 33, 35 minutes a game. I think after the first 3 minutes, I was gassed. I was playing so hard. But, you know, Coach Hamilton, for him to have such a high level of success for so long and to still be able to do that, for him to have, you know, great assistants that go off and do great things, for him to be able to attract assistants to come back that have done great things, to constantly produce pros and different looking pros. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's not very many schools out there who are getting these long African kids, or, you know what I'm saying? Or just these versatile guys like they do on a consistent basis. You know, just to see the way he thinks recruiting wise. And I know there's more to it than just him. I know he has great assistants around him. But at the same token, just being able to kind of sit at a dinner table with him and just kind of listen to it. And I've always, I grew up with one grandparent, you know, for the most part. Both of my grandmothers died before I was born. One of my grandfathers died when I was like 3, you know, so I really didn't have a chance to know him. I grew up with one grandparent, and my grandfather was everything in the world to me. And I have a huge respect for anyone who's older than me, you know. And so just to piggyback and try to figure out, you know, what their things were like Coach Tick Price talked on the Zoom the other day. I was enamored by some of the stories that he was saying. You know, I talked to Coach Mike Davis all the time. I like great stuff. And so like anybody who's been in this game, especially who looks like me, the same demographic, black head coach, you know what I'm saying, which is where I'm trying to get to at any level, it's important for me to sit back and take that information in. So I think first and foremost, Leonard Hamilton and Coach Moten are two prime candidates for me to sit down and figure out, you know, how they tick and how they've been so successful.
Two great names right there. And by the way, on today, while we're doing this, happy birthday to Coach Hamilton. Today is his birthday. So that's a great name right there. Just want to say happy birthday to Coach Hamilton. He's done an outstanding job. Biggest accomplishment, man, you've experienced since, you know, being a college coach?
I'd say there are two. You know, at Eastern, we completely changed that program around. That program was a 5-6 win team when Coach Eric McNelly kind of took it over, or, you know, maybe 7 or 8. And we turned around and won the league one year and came in second the next year, you know. And so, you know, had multiple all-conference players, had a player of the year, all in those 2 years. Beat top 25 ranked opponents, competed against a lot of high level competition at the Division III level, developed a lot of great talent. And so I think that was great for me in the sense of being able to understand that I was a part of something that was successful, you know, as a coach. Not that, you know, we weren't successful in high school, because we were, you know, we won district championships, and, you know, we had 21 seasons and, you know, things of that nature. But at the same token, at the college level, it's a little bit different. And so going to Eastern and having that impact of where you could, you know, help those kids out and do those things, you know, on that type of a level, definitely was great for me. And then coming to Penn, I think since then, the biggest accomplishment that we had was, I say we, because I'm a part of it. I don't want to say it was just on me, but, winning the Big Five for us, I think was a huge deal. It was the first time that had been done in so long, and, for us to be able to beat, Villanova, St. Joe's, Temple, and LaSalle, it was a big deal for the city. It was a big deal for our program. It was a big deal for our seniors, coming off of a year where, the program had won an Ivy League championship. We were riding high and playing hard. And I think it was, very important when we won that. And so I could say that was definitely at Penn so far. We're going to have more success in the future, but so far was the biggest accomplishment that we've had, as far as a team and as far as what I've been a part of at Penn, but at Eastern as well. I think, just being able to kind of help turn that program around with those other group of guys was great as well.
Awesome. I'm just going to throw you off a little bit. Like, what movie or TV show title best describes your week?
My week? This is funny because, so I'm not a huge movie buff. I used to watch a lot of old movies, but I'm not a huge movie buff. But as far as TV shows, I'll say this. My two favorite TV shows are Entourage and The Office, and both of them actually pertain to this week and the past couple of weeks, because so as you can see, I have a little sailor buoy behind me. I'm in my kids' room. This is my office. And so I spent more time in here in my kids' room than I do, because this is the last place in the house that they go, which is their own room. And so I've kind of set up a little deal with my computer, my everything in here. So this is my office, and I spend night and day in here, all the time, just doing stuff. And so The Office, but then the reason why I say Entourage is because, again, people. And so I've kind of been able to build somewhat of an entourage when it comes to these Zoom calls. As you know, we've had these Zoom calls for so long that, we've become regulars to a certain extent. And we have like a crew, I guess you could say, that have become like the constant, recurring theme where, it's a certain group of guys that stay on late and talk and mesh and this, that, and the third. And so I think those two right now are definitely pertinent to the situation because of the fact that, of what we're going through right now. So The Office, which also is because we could be very, very straightforward, very blunt, very, very joking, have a jovial experience, but at the same token, Entourage as well. So because I think we're all trying to make it, and I think that's what Entourage is basically about. It's about, all these guys are trying to find their way in a different world than what they grew up in, and so it's the same thing.
I love both of those answers. Those are pretty good answers, man. What's your favorite word or phrase?
Word or phrase?
Favorite word or phrase?
It changes, man. It changes. My grandfather used to tell me all the time, you got to change your motivation. Change your motivation. He used to tell me that all the time, and I think that's something that definitely sticks with me. You got to change your motivation. I think, that's kind of grown on me as over years. Your motivation and your inspiration can't be the same all the time. Because if it is, then it's going to burn out. It's like a candle, right? You light it up, you've been inspired, basically. And I make analogies for everything. So, you take this candle, right, and you light it, and that fire, that flame is your inspiration. That's it. It's the exciting moment. It's that aha. It's like I got it. I'm passionate. I'm ready to go. I'm going forward. But after a while, that motivation, that inspiration, it dwindles to a point where it goes down and it flickers. And so you got to get a different candle, and you got to change it. Same thing, and for for different reasons. Sometimes you do things for your family, you know. You do it to get your mom out of the house, out of that neighborhood. So I got to get my mom out of the neighborhood. I got to get money. I got to get a better car. I got to get a better lifestyle. I gotta educate myself. I want to be around great people. I want to have success. I want to, whatever that is. I want to win. I want to do this. Your inspiration has to change from a macro level, meaning your overall goals. They have to continue to grow. But then from a micro level, they have to change as well. And so as your foundational stay the same, who's important, whether that be faith-based, whether that be family-based, whatever the case may be. But, sometimes you need to replace the shingles on the roof. Sometimes you need to take the carpet up and put a hardwood floor in there. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you need to, change the wallpaper or, get the electrician to come in and rewire whatever. Whatever the case may be, there's always updates and things that you could change, but you need to be able to change that motivation. And so, there's some things that you foundationally, goal-wise, you'll have that similar that you're still reaching towards. Like, for example, if you want to be a high major head coach, that's never going to change. You're going to be a high major head coach, but maybe ways in which you get there. Maybe I got to network better. Maybe I got to, do this better. Maybe I got to get better with situations. Maybe I got to be a better, relational person when it comes to the players or whatever the case may be. But things need to change and there needs to be different inspirations. And part of that is just being involved in the world. You got to walk outside your house. You got to talk to people. You got to think outside of yourself. And so I think that's one thing that's definitely been floating around. I don't want to say it's my favorite phrase, but it's definitely a meaningful phrase that I constantly say to myself is, when things start to get, that light starts to flicker a little bit, you got to change your motivation, man.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Great, great information from your grandfather. Now, I hope this don't tie in together. Maybe it does, but like, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Two pieces of advice I've received. One from J. Robert Merritt, who was a senior when I was a freshman at Sanford. And he told me, he goes, he said him and also Randall Galeno, who was also a junior when I was a freshman, they both did the same thing. They were like, listen, you're never as good as they say you are. You're never as bad as they say you are. You're always somewhere in the middle. The difference is, it's like you want to be somewhere closer to that good end. He's like, so let things go through one ear and out the other and digest what you can. The rest of it, spit it out. He's like, it's the same thing you do with food, right? He's like, when you eat a banana, right? He's like, the good stuff you keep, the bad stuff you let go. That's the way your body works. So it's like the same thing when it comes to what people say and, what you hear and everything. Is like, you need to retain the things that you can retain. I think Coach Jerome Tang was kind of saying that stuff on the Zoom as well. He was saying we receive so much information from these Zooms that it's going to be damn near impossible for us to retain every piece of information from hundreds of Zooms and hundreds of coaches that you're talking and listening to each and every day. But it's important for you to pick the things out that could properly pertain to what you're doing and what you're trying to do. And that's the most important thing, is getting that meaningful information. The second thing is an AAU term, and I'm sure you've heard it. You've worked in numerous places as well as the hoop group. But it's figure it out, and for lack of better terms, there's another word in there that I won't use, but figure it out, right? And so there are times where you can't look to the head coach, you can't look to your wife, you can't look to other people. You just got to figure it out. You just got to find ways to just like, all right, I just got to get it, And sometimes you're going to have to sit there for an hour and reflect and, put your mind through a crazy spin cycle and try to figure it out. And other times it's just going to click. But at the end of the day, there are moments in time where you can't just say, hey, listen, man, I got to be able to ask somebody and they're going to provide me the answer, or I got to be able to, go here and this is what's going to be able to do it. It's like, nah, that's not it. Sometimes you just got to figure it out. You just got to, lean on what and use your instincts, use your nature as far as, your mindset, and just try to push forward. And a lot of times, your best answer is essentially what's the right answer. And so that's a big one. There's been plenty of times where I've been in that office and I've been like, man, how is this gonna work? Like like, what are we doing? And then next thing you know, it's like, you know what? Forget it. Like, I just got to do it. I was like, stop complaining. Let's go. And you get to it. And next thing you know, after a little bit of work, a little bit of research, a little bit of this, okay. I kind of see where it's going. And, so you got to give yourself a chance. So that's what I'll say. It's definitely those two. No doubt.
Awesome. Awesome. What does success mean to you?
That's a great question because, success can mean a lot of things. For me, it's being able to provide a lifestyle for my family in which they don't have to want anything. Or I don't want to say want anything, but need anything. My dad always created that lifestyle for me to where he said, listen, you're going to get 100% of the things that you need, but I can't promise you're going to get everything that you want. He's like, and so, and I consider myself to have lived a great childhood. And, I've had obstacles just like everybody else, but he was right. There was nothing that I needed that I didn't get. Same thing for my kids, for my wife. I want to make sure that if there's anything that they need, I could be of service and make sure that I provide for them. That's success for me when it comes to the family level. And that could be anything. That doesn't have to be just monetarily. That could be my time, my effort, my love, my thoughts, whatever it may be. But being able to provide for them. Success also means, being able, as an assistant coach right now, and I'll kind of go family assistant and I'll kind of go future. As an assistant right now, being able to provide, everything that I possibly can without looking back and regretting, and saying, what if, maybe I could have did this, maybe I could have did that. If I can go to sleep at night knowing that I did everything that I could, I say all the time, all you can do is all you can do. And if all I can do is what I did, then there's nothing more I could have done, so if I can go to bed knowing that I did everything that I can do, then I'm fine with it. I could live with that. What I'm saying? I could live with the results. And so being able to provide the best that you can, making sure that you're on top of everything that you possibly can be, because there's so many things that we have to be on top of that we can't possibly be perfect at every time. But just doing the best that you can in that aspect for the players, for the program, and then for yourself, and making sure you're doing right by the head coach as well. And then, as far as the future, just making sure that, as far as success is getting to the job that you want. I think your job, the job that you want to get can change. Like right now, I could easily say, hey, listen, what kind of job do you want when you're 50? I want to be a head coach at, I don't know, I'm throwing a high major out there, Ohio State, Kansas, UCLA, Syracuse, Baylor. I don't care. It doesn't matter, right? You want to be a high major head coach, right? But that can change over time to where it's like, hey, listen, man, look, I've been a head coach. I might want to be a associate head coach. I don't feel like answering to the media every 2 days. You know what I'm saying? Or, whatever the case, that can change. But I think success in the future ultimately is about attaining the goals that you set yourself and being realistic in that goal setting. Some of us have, unrealistic goals to where we're like, hey, listen, I want to be the head coach at Duke, and we know you're not going to be the head coach at Duke. Duke guys get that job, right? And so let's be real, right? And so I think sometimes you can't have those unrealistic goals. But if you have a goal that can be attained and you can get there, that's what success is. And you got to keep it simple on that aspect. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to make it too complicated, but that's it. But outside of that, it's 100% on the players. And I was talking basically those three things on my end. But as far as success, it's making sure that you have a relationship with those players. Those players graduate. Those players go on to do great things. Those players could come back and talk to you and lean on advice that you may be able to still provide for them. Those players send you postcards of where they've traveled or pictures of their new baby when they were born, or invite you to their wedding, or, you know what I'm saying, let you know when, hey, mom's sick, can you pray for her? Because when they call you back and tell you those things, you're like, man, I'm pretty important if they let me in their life like that. And so that's a level of success as well. And so there's so many different levels. I think it's not good for the human spirit and a human nature for us to pigeonhole our stuff on one thing. That's an issue that I have, is like saying, like, we all of us guys were sitting there and was like, oh man, I'm black. I don't want to be known as the recruiter. Well, okay. I don't want to be known as a recruiter, just a recruiter, but damn it, I want to be known as a recruiter too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be known to get good players as well. So it's like, I want to be known for being good in everything and being good in multiple spots. So don't pigeonhole yourself to just one idea of what success could be. There's so many things in which success could be, and aim to do the best you can and reach those goals in every facet of life, because we know there's just not one facet of life that we're going through each and every day.
So true, man. Great knowledge right there. You're not a self-promoter. And I know that because I listen to you a lot. But if you had to choose 3 adjectives that describe yourself, which would you choose?
I'll say, loyalty is number 1 on my book when it comes to what I do. I am not the dude, I'm not the dude to shy away from the people that have done right for me in the past and continue to do right for me now. Coach Jimmy Tillett is the head coach that gave me an opportunity to be who I am. So I will always be grateful for what he has provided me. Coach Eric McNally gave me a shot to be a college coach at the Division III level. Coach Steve Donahue gave me an opportunity to be a college coach at the Division I level. Those guys I'm eternally loyal to, first and foremost. It's not a job that's better than the job that I have. And so ultimately, those guys are the most important pieces when it comes to, making sure that, where my loyalty resides. You're never going to hear a bad word out of my mouth coming from Coach Donahue. Are there some things that I might disagree with as far as maybe the decisions that he might make? Sure. We're all men. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course. You know what I'm saying? Are there things that he might think of me that he might disagree with? Of course. We're all men. Same thing with Coach McNally. Same thing with Coach Tillett. Same thing with Coach Schick and Coach Berg, who were my high school coaches. Same thing with Coach Derek Jones, who's one of my mentors, Byron Keller, all of those people. But at the same token, I will never in public or even in private, one-on-one, I will never do that. That's not who I am. It's never been who I am. I'd say I'm a very enthusiastic person. When it comes to having a passion for the things that I love, for the things that I have, I try to live life as happily and as enthusiastically as possible. Again, life's too short, especially from the experiences that I've had. Life is way too short for you to be upset, for you to walk around without a smile on your face, for you to live in that negative space. Now, there are certain things that people are going through that I can't account for, that they have that right. You know what I'm saying? Because certain things have happened to them specifically. But for me personally, if you consider yourself to be, healthy to a certain extent, you shouldn't, and you're working hard towards your goals and everything like that, then there's no reason why you should be walking around unenthusiastic about an opportunity to get better each and every day. And the last thing I'll say is I'm a joking guy, dude. I like to joke, man. I like to have fun. Like, what's life in it without having fun? Sometimes fun could be winning. Sometimes fun could be, getting that new job. And sometimes fun could be calling your boy up at 11:30 at night and just shooting the breeze with him and talking a little bit of mess and, what I'm saying, things of that nature. It's all about having fun. And so at the end of the day, my loyalty resides where it resides is paramount, first and foremost. It's with my family. It's with those individuals who hold me accountable, who are constantly watching me, who are making sure that I'm on the straight and narrow. That's the most important thing, I will say, as far as about me. So if there's ever anybody who calls me and they're like, hey man, what's going on with Coach Donahue, or what's going on with Coach Nat Graham, or what's going on with Coach Joe Mahalik, I'll be like, ain't gonna get nothing out of me. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I might say something positive. You know what I'm saying? I might say, hey man, Coach Graham just came back from a great vacation. I might say something like that. Hey, Coach Mahalik, he and his wife and his daughter, they're doing tremendous. I'll say that, but you'll never hear me say anything bad about them. Never. That will not come out of my mouth.
Awesome, man. Three great adjectives as well. What person and or event has had the most influence on your life?
I mean, my mother is my mother. There's no event. It's just my mom. I talk to my mom three times a day. Now, I will say this too. That has changed since I've had kids, because sometimes she's calling to see the kids and not talk to me. But at the same token, my mom, hands down. My wife is my rock. She is my partner. She is, that person in my life that I confide in. She's my best friend. But for consistency's sake, over the course and duration of my life, has been my mother. And so she was the person when I was younger. Obviously, she licked my wounds and she, she fixed me up and patched me up and made sure I was all right. She was the person I got emotional support from, and I got my confidence from. And so, and obviously a lot of other traits. And so, but she's always been there. And even when things are awry, she always listened. She was always there to listen. And she was always there she keeps it real. Like, my mom's she's not going to curse me out, but she ain't going to tell me anything that that I want to hear. She's going to tell me the stuff that I need to hear. She's going to make sure that she's the person to say it. And sometimes she'll be like, well, if you don't want to hear it right now, fine. We don't have to talk right now, but when I call you back, you're going to hear it. And so, and you need that, because not everybody's going to give you that. But I'd say from a consistent standpoint, it's been my mother, hands down. But my wife and my dad have played pivotal roles as well. Obviously, my grandfather, as well as those individuals that I've mentioned. And a lot of other coaches, I will say, as of late, have been very instrumental especially in the past 6 or 7 months, have been very instrumental in my mindset and where it's going. I mentioned earlier about Coach Mike Davis. I'll tell you a quick story about him. So I met him. He was the head coach at UAB at the time when I was playing at Sanford. And, I was always like, man, we need to play UAB. We need to play UAB. They're 5 minutes away, like, whatever. We ended up playing them at a Kent State tournament. So 2 schools that are 5 minutes away never play each other in a home and home, but we play each other at a Kent State tournament miles away. So we play them, very close game. I think I had like 20 something, whatever. And we ended up losing by 3. So kind of upset. So of course, what happens when you leave these tournaments, you're all getting on the same flight to go home, especially if you're going to the same place. So of course, we're sharing the airplane with the team that we just lost to, right? So I'm sitting in the aisle seat. Across the aisle from me is Coach Mike Davis. And so he sits there and he asked me a question, and he goes, hey man, listen, he goes, you guys run that Princeton stuff, right? And I was like, yes, sir. And he goes, well, how long do you guys practice? Because that's a lot of stuff. And so I told him we practice a long time, man. It's a lot of adjustments and learning and this, that, and the third. He goes, man, I don't know how you do that, man. That's incredible. And so lo and behold, he looked at me and he goes, hey man, I don't want to talk to you right now. He's like, but after the season's over, I want you to give me a call. He's like, because that was my senior year. He goes, after the season's over, he's like, I know you're graduating. He goes, give me a call. He's like, I'd love to just talk to you about life and
Wow.
and just see where you're headed. He's like, if you're thinking about going to play overseas, he's like, let me know. He's like, if you want to come and work out with our guys, let me know. He's like, but just give me a call. So I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'm like, all right, absolutely. And lo and behold, like, this dude has given me like 20 books to read. Like he's he's like, yo, you need to read this book. You need to read this book. Every now and then he'll text me. He'll be like, he'll text me like this and text me this. And so, in fact, I'm reading this book right now, which, again, which is by Daniel Coyle. And so it's called The Little Book of Talent. And so I'm sure a lot of people have read that, but it's like 52 really simple, tangible steps that you could do that help create success and create hardworking work ethics and stuff. And so that's a book that I've read once already. This is my second time reading it. And so just being instrumental in those aspects. So, I mean, it's super important, you know, for me to have that, because that type of stuff inspires me. That type of stuff, like, kind of like gives me an added little push sometimes, because I'm like, oh man, this dude's up in, you know, Coach Mike Davis is at Detroit Mercy, so he's up in Detroit. It's like I'm this green young assistant coach in the Ivy, and this dude who's won at every place that he's been, you know, is giving me little text messages here and there. I'm like, man. So it's like, it's such a blessing to have like people in your life that literally provide that type of energy, you know?
So true, man. So true right there. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self, like just a few years out, but like, what would you tell your younger self to prepare for as an assistant coach? Like, it was just a short few years ago. What would you tell yourself?
Stay the course. Stay the course. Trust yourself. Just continue to work hard. You know, I've always going into the coaching, the Division I, you know, coaching level. I didn't know if there was a difference between working hard at the Division III level versus working hard at the Division I level. Same thing happened from high school to Division III. And so I didn't know. I was like, I'm working hard, but I don't know if I'm working the hardest. Like, is this, you know, am I supposed to be doing something else? Like, am I doing this right? Like, you know, what is it? And I actually had a conversation with our ops guy, Brad Fathom at the time. And I asked him, you know, everybody's out the office, and I went up to him and I said, hey man, listen. He goes, am I doing all right? And he was like, dude, he's like, you're doing fine. We had a problem, you'd know. And so that kind of gave me a little bit of trust, but like, that also let me know, like, I shouldn't be doubting myself. Like, if I feel I should be working harder, then work harder. But if you feel like you're doing all you can, that's why I said before, all you could do is all you could do, then, you know, then you shouldn't have that issue. So, I mean, but if you feel like you need to work harder, then do it. Like, there's no reason why you should be questioning yourself. And so, and this is all a part of growing up. I mean, you know, I'm steadily growing in this business. I'm growing to be a different person. And so, you know, because again, like I said before, to many people, I don't come from this great basketball mecca of place where basketball is so known. I don't come from these coaches who have these great coaching trees to where I walked in with so many connections and this, that, and a third, and I could live off the reputation of one guy. And, you know, I don't have that, you know, and so I'm figuring it out in ways that many others don't have to, and which is fine. Like, I don't have any quarrels about that. But at the same token, there does come some things involved with it where you're constantly questioning some things that you do sometimes. And so being able to just be honest with myself and just say, hey, listen, man, stay the course, trust yourself, work hard, you know, stay on top of the things you can do, you know, just trust yourself. You're here for a reason. This is not an accident. There's no accidents. You're here. There's a reason why you're here. There could have been any other people could have got this job, but you're here. Like, that's not an accident. Like, you know, so just focusing on that. So stay in the course, man. That's definitely something that if I had to look back, I would definitely tell myself that.
Well, look, man, I want to thank you, man, for dropping those nuggets and all the other ones during the show. And So I thank you again for being a guest on the show and being unmasked. I usually say like, hey, is there anything you might want to say to the people listening out there, like in the show with?
You know, I'm first and foremost, I'm hoping that, as is, during this pandemic, during this off period, that we understand how important we are as human beings to be safe, to make sure that we're doing the right thing as far as, the proper protocol and keeping each other safe as far as this pandemic. Second of all, with this, the way the social climate is, understanding who we are as Black men and women, especially in this profession, understanding that we need to uplift each other and stay with one another to continue to progress, to educate one another on more than just ourselves and everything that's around us. And the last thing that I'll say is that yesterday was myself and my wife's 8-year anniversary. So I want to make sure I give a shout out to her, since I said that the basketball thing was the decision with that. So I want to make sure that I that I get it right. But 8-year anniversary for me and my wife Kayla, who I love very dearly. So, but other than that, man, I appreciate you having me on this. It's a blessing to get to know you, to be able to rap with you and a bunch of the other coaches that, I've been communicating with as of late, and just hope for success in the future for you, for obviously myself. I hope for success for myself, but then everybody else who not only watches this, but who's a part of the coaching world as well.
Man, you're welcome, man. Thanks for those words. And I saw it on social media yesterday, so 8 years is perfect. Mine will be 16 in 2 days. So
there you go.
What, 3 days, 7. We all August, your coach, you get married in August. This is how it is. For the most part.
Well, we got married in August because it was cheap.
I like that. Well, look, thank you, viewers, for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them unmasked. See you next time, and stay safe.